So today on this morning's rant, I'm going to break down where the abundant mindset fails. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Got the flight book, it's a library. I'm in the deal. Just took a flight to Bora and foreign cars like foreigners. Berry on her. Up in France, bitch, bonjour. I been come to go so we going Paris tomorrow. Only Paris we carry, spin at the mall. We doing the same alone. My diamonds be saying, add some more change. That's the same alone. Dripping all the way from home and taking the wrong. Got the flight book, it's a library. We ain't flying solo. Tune in to the show. It's the passport bros. No excuse entertainment. Jay Slay on the show. Turn it up some more. It's the passport bros.
What's good? What's good, fellas? Hope all is well this morning. So I wanted to talk about something that came into my mind. I had watched a Fresh and Fit clip. Maybe this was like a couple weeks ago. And, they were talking about, how some guys tend to be afraid to leave their girl or let's say wife in certain situations because, they don't want to lose her. They're afraid to be alone or, they feel like they can't replace that woman, whatever the reasoning is, you know what I mean? But basically, they said that a lot of men don't have the abundance mindset, and basically saying that if you have the abundance mindset, the phrase that Alpha Male Strategy uses a lot as well, is that you pretty much have more confidence. You don't really allow yourself to be consumed or feel like you have to chase or be with a particular woman. You know what I mean? Because they're abundance mindset implies that there's a lot of options and that any woman or person can be replaced, which for the most part is true. You know what I mean? Let me see what I got in the comments real quick. What's good, servants? Yeah. So there's a difference between women having an abundance mindset versus men. And even though I do agree that having an abundance mindset is necessary, I want to point out where it fails and where it leads to delusion. You know what I mean? Having just as much as delusion as a lot of women. So from a female standpoint, the reason why a lot of women leave situations, marriages, relationships, their child's father is because they have an abundance mindset. It's been affirmed through social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, so they are confident in replacing your ass. They are very, very confident in replacing your ass. They know the confidence is so high that they know regardless of how many kids that they have, no matter what type of weight they will gain, they have the confidence that there is choices that there are pools of men that they could choose from. It's not just one man, it's multiple men they know they could choose from. Like, they truly have an abundant mindset, but as we know, and as people like, Kevin S tried to enlighten them about, is that yes, you may think you have all these options, but at the end of the day, a lot of these dudes want to smash. Most of the time, they're not looking to be married, especially not to a woman with kids or a woman, kind of past their prime. So the options they have or think they have, it makes them delusional, and that's why that's why a lot of us say, a lot of women are delusional with the options that they think they really have. But nevertheless, the abundant mindset is the reason why a lot of women will die alone. And that's where abundance mindset fails with women. Let me get to the men now. So it's a slightly different because with women, as they get older, their sexual market value declines. As men get older, our sexual market value increases. So in theory, you know, um, we shouldn't really worry about the notion of dying alone or not being able to get the type of woman we want because our sexual market value increases. And in theory, if you have the abundance mindset as a man, you're going to be always in a win-win situation. But this is where it fails for men. So, for example, so me being married now, right? To a foreign woman, if anybody don't know, it still it still took me almost 5 years of traveling internationally to find a woman that checked most of the boxes. You know, and not only myself, but I'm just saying other men that have traveled as well. That have wives or serious relationships. So even though I know that I could replace my wife if it came down to that, I still know that it's not going to be easy and it's going to take time. So even in the situation of having an abundance mindset, you have to be realistic to know what that looks like. Now you could have an abundance mindset as far as like getting more chicks to smash. Yeah, there's an abundance of chicks to smash. So I don't think nobody needs to worry about that. But in order for me to even exercise my abundance options, I have to have I have to have resources. So to have an abundance mindset and for it to work, it works as probability. So it means that the more and more interactions that I have, a small percentage of those interactions, is going to be a match for me. So for example, right, women women can use the abundance mindset because they get hundreds of thousands of Instagram or Facebook messages. And even though they may not be interested in most of them, they know that out of 1,000 interests, at least 10, would be somebody that they would want. So for them, that's good. So it's easier for women because they don't really have to do a lot of work for 1,000 men to pick through. So as a man, and I used to think about this in dating, and that's why I thought online dating was a better option. So like if you a man and you can't rely on 1,000 women DMing you, so we traditionally meet women in person or maybe through a dating app or something like that, or through friends. So if you relying on meeting women, for example, in person, you got to go through 1,000 women to find 10. You're not, no man has the time, nor there is even a place where you can possibly meet and exchange through, let's say, 1,000 women. You know what I mean? So right there, it's hard to have the abundance mindset because you can't approach 1,000 women in person in a short amount of time, and then vet, let's say, 1% of those. So that's one flaw and one advantage women have because women can reach more. women could reach more men than men could reach women in a shorter amount of time. You know what I mean? So the same thing if you rely on meeting someone through mutual friends. Like you know what I mean? You're not going to be able to reach 1,000 different women. So let's just say online. So yeah, so online, you know what I mean? You could message hundreds and hundreds of thousands of women in the US, for example. And yeah, you may be able to narrow the woman that you like, or let's just say 1,000 women. Let's say 10 respond. Those 10 that respond, a lot of times are not even going to be ones that you're interested in. So you still, and then you try to pick the best out that 10, and you still going to be in a settling position. Whereas women, if they get hit up by 1,000 men, you know what I mean, they'll find it'll be somebody that checks their boxes, even if 10, 10 out of the 1,000. But for men, we reach out to 1,000. Most of the 10 are probably going to be overweight women or women we're unattracted to, or they got a lot of kids for the most part. And then on top of that, because men are thirsty, those women are getting hollered at by 1,000 other men. You know what I mean? So the abundant mindset, even, it's slightly better than meeting women in person. You reach more women, but it's still hard to really find what you're looking for. So now, as far as Passport Bros is concerned, we can travel. You know what I mean? So yes, so our abundance mindset can bring more of the results we're looking for, because not only we can use online forums to message women, we could use online forums in multiple countries, and we could also visit these countries in person. And then on top of that, a lot of these countries, especially in Latin America, the ratio of women to men is higher. You know what I mean? So we have all these stats that work in our favor. So somebody may say, well, how can the abundance mindset fail if brothers traveling overseas and they have more options overseas? So it doesn't fail if you can do it. It fails if you can't do it. So where the abundant mindset fails is for guys that don't have the time or money to explore those options. So, you know what I mean? So if you got, you can say, we can say we got 100,000 options all over the world. You have to have means to be able to travel to vet through all those women. If you on dating sites, different dating sites for different countries, you got to have time. A lot of these sites, you gotta pay for monthly subscription. And so to be able to meet and have a higher probability, it costs money. So when Fresh and Fit mentioned that, guys in the US um should be able to just leave a situation if it's not working for them, because they should have abundance mindset. I'm saying it fails. That advice fails for men that's stuck in a matrix. You have to you have to stay in that situation for the most part, unless you try to find a chick while you in that situation, and then leave that situation while you already got something lined up. But for the most part, men have to stay in situations, especially if they don't have no plan B. So this is just another example of how some of these talking points, fail. A lot of advice, especially some of these red pill, quote unquote dating coaches give, it only works for men that have means. It only works for men that have means. What's good, chat? I'm trying to let me see if I can catch up. Servant said, totally agree with you, brother. I'm glad to see brothers carrying a legacy of KS. Yes, sir. K. Halton, what's good? Salute. Man, tomorrow says productivity and location change your status. Yeah, man. So I mean, in conclusion, you know, we don't want men to be delusional. We don't want, especially guys that's kind of stuck in a matrix. Don't be delusional on this abundance mindset. Yes, yes, we want to be confident, but you don't want to be false. You don't want to have false confidence. You don't want to have false confidence, because what that will lead to is you being just as delusional as these women and pretty much dying alone as these women. So yes, like the dating coaches would say, even the brother in the travel community would say, yes, work on ways that you can travel, whether it's ways to generate more income or ways to make your work life more flexible, that you could travel more. But if you are not able to explore options overseas, the abundance mindset fails. That's all I got for you fellas for this morning rant. I'm out.